Okay, it's 4:30 and I want to call the Licensing Hearing and Public Safety Committee for February 26th to order. Alderman Zach Rust and Dan Peterson are excused. Joe?
Here.
And Razia?
Yep.
The Vice Chair, Robert Lefebvre, is here. Would you all stand and recite the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we can, everybody here knows pretty much everybody, right? Okay. Number 5, approval of the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Chair says aye, passes. Number 6, resolution number 165-24-25. A resolution authorizing acceptance of the 2025 Wisconsin Bureau of Transportation Safety Bicycle and Pedestrian Enforcement Grant and establishing an appropriation in the 2025 budget for grant funds received.
So this is an annual resolution that's prepared by the police department that the city office has reviewed and recommends. This resolution, the only thing that changes year to year is the statistics in it. So if we look at the resolution, you'll see where it says sort of in the second paragraph there, it'll say in Wisconsin causing 61 fatalities and injuring, just those numbers there, depending on the previous year that gets the data. That is the only thing that's changed year to year since 2021. So the police department is here to speak on behalf of the grant today.
First, Gracie, do you?
Yes, so you may have seen that we received, so Brian and Judith are here today. They provided some data based on which, and they can speak to that, but based on that data, which seems to be the most up-to-date for Sheboygan County from the DOT, the numbers are a little bit different than what is indicated in the ordinance. And the correlation between the numbers and the incidences draws two different conclusions. So I can, if the chair approves, Drew and Brian can speak to that, and then I would have a couple of proposals.
Okay, chair will accept info from these gentlemen.
So my name is Brian Kelly. I am part of Sheboygan Active Transportation, and we're a group that advocates for pedestrian and bike safety in Sheboygan. We're also involved with some book clubs. We provided some packets here with some of the data that we were collecting sort of as we were taking a look at this resolution. So this was from the Wisconsin DOT, Bureau of Transportation Safety. For the years 2021 through 2023. The first page here is from that report. Something interesting was the bicyclist and pedestrian action at time of crash. Not everything was labeled there, so we included some updated charts just labeling those, and then there's another chart showing what the driver action was. Some interesting stats we found in our research was that distracted driving was actually really low in Sheboygan County for this period compared to the state levels, which is good to see. And then for the resolution, we were kind of concerned specifically with the wording that pedestrian street crossings are the most common cause of crashes in Sheboygan. And then it says, especially when drivers are distracted or pedestrians move into traffic unexpectedly. So to us, that kind of reads like it's not really assigning like what is the most like the largest problem in our in Sheboygan County or in the city of Sheboygan. So we had on the very last page included some verbiage that we thought most accurately identified what is the most common cause. Specifically, it is motorists failing to yield the right of way. And then even for pedestrians, the yielding right of way is the next most common issue other than no improper action. So we feel like with the limited funds that the police are getting, that would be the most like important thing or the most effective enforcement that in our view, just as safety advocates for the police to take. With the way it was worded here, we were kind of reading the action was engaging in high visibility enforcement of bicycle and pedestrian violations. It's a little unclear with what that means. So one of our recommended changes or something that we would like to see would be changing that verbiage to say that high visibility enforcement of traffic violations and then endangering vulnerable road users. And that vulnerable road users term is from a report, the Wisconsin DOT Strategic Highway Safety Plan from 2023 to 2027. So just trying to be a little bit more clear with the messaging of this resolution and sort of targeting that most Sheboygan's biggest problem right now with
Just to read it, summarize, right? So I think it was just the verbiage was concerning for us, considering that the most common location for a pedestrian bicycle accident was at a marked crosswalk, and the most common action for a bicyclist or pedestrian was no improper action. And I think the verbiage of the resolution makes it kind of like look like that that's the cause, rather than the motorist.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I want to compliment you for giving us this information. A lot of times what I think aldermen are going to look at is the $10,000. Okay, and that doesn't, unless you're going to cross that and say you want more money, that we, so we can do one of two things. We can either, are you going to authorize amendments, or do we say, well, let's send this back to legal, get the verbiage put in that and have it come back to the committee as a full resolution? Which would be easier?
Yeah, I was thinking that, I don't know where the data came from that was incorporated, captured in this, originally in this ordinance, but we could do both, either thing. We could, if you want to, together with the police department, if you want to look at the data again and change the terms, the verbiage of the resolution, that's fine with us. Or I can propose an alternative language, including some that Brian and Drew proposed, but slightly different. So in other words, looking at the figures, and that's where the problem is, that looking at the figures from the DOT from 2021, 2023, it looks like that there is a much stronger correlation between the violation of the motorists to cause the crashes than the violation of the bicyclists and the pedestrians. So I find that the figures tell a different story. So that's why I don't know if we want to do that right now. I can have that verbiage ready or not.
So what I can say is that this grant comes from the state. It doesn't come from Sheboygan County. So the data that's currently in the resolution is from the state in total. That's why the numbers are different as far as I can tell. So we're seeing stuff provided by the citizens here. I believe that's from the county. Since this is from the state, I believe that's why the numbers might be different, not discounting the data, just saying that's maybe why it's different.
Well, I think we're just using this data to justify our changes to the resolution.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
not questioning what those numbers above are.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so do we need a motion to accept the amendment, or do we ask legal to get with the new information that's out here to come back with a, oh, Joe?
Thank you, Chair. Is this a time sensitive thing? Do we have to have this done today? Is there something where you aren't going to get the money if we don't pass this resolution? Because if that's the case, then I want the amendments. And I want to, let's clear it up with the information that we've got from the citizens, and then adopt the resolution.
I would say it's not time sensitive because most of this enforcement happens in the summertime.
Okay.
When the vulnerable road users are actually out, right? However, and I don't think we have any planned deployments. Generally, we would start last year. We had $25,000. This year, we got reduced to $10,000 because of cuts in federal funding. So we probably won't have a scheduled deployment till June. However, I can give you my take on the numbers and what we're planning on and what we've done historically with this grant and what we're planning on doing this year. Because if the committee has an appetite to change the direction of the type of enforcement that we applied, that we told the state we would use the grant money from, I might have to reapply for the grant itself.
Okay.
So if you'd like, I can give you some background on how this all started and how we got here today.
Razia?
I would definitely be interested in that. However, I don't understand. So the grant is not given if you are going to look for the violation of the motorists versus the pedestrian and the bicyclist?
Well, I think the resolution doesn't quite encompass everything that's in the grant plan with the state. So I can outline what we told the state we were going to do with the money. So we first got this grant, I believe 5 years ago, and we got a $5,000 grant, then we got a $10,000 grant. Then we were the only agency in the state that was using the entire grant the way it was supposed to be done. So the last 2 years, I believe 23, we got $20,000. Last year, we got $25,000 because we were actively using it. We had the manpower to use the grant. So every year that we've done this, we've submitted a plan to the state. And just so you know, the grant is for increasing bicycle and pedestrian safety. Okay, it's not to persecute bicyclists or persecute pedestrians. So we basically wrote the grant to do two things. So one, to go to our areas of the city where pedestrians congregate the most. Okay, that's weekends in the summertime on Michigan Avenue in our bar district. And as everybody knows, when people are under the influence of alcohol, they maybe don't use crosswalks properly and tend to dart out into the middle of the street, combined with a higher level of unsafe driving behavior. That's where we thought we needed this money the most, the extra enforcement the most. When we started getting extra money, we brought that out to like the John Michael Kohler Arts Center Summer Concert Series, the P1 boat races, the Midsummer Arts Festival, anywhere almost every farmer's market in the summertime gets extra cops there to make sure that when people are crossing the street or coming to the farmer's market on a bicyclist, that they can do so in a safe manner. I will agree that any person who's walking or bicycling that is not in a 2,000 to 4,000 pound automobile surrounded by metal is going to be at a higher risk of being injured or killed when they're around a bunch of cars. I will also tell you that almost every driving behavior violation, moving violation that a car or that a driver commits is an increased risk to a pedestrian or bicyclist. Okay, even some equipment violations are increased risks, like burned out headlights. Okay, there's no denying that people who aren't in a car are more likely to get harmed by someone in a car that engages in speeding, failing to yield the right of way, failing to yield for a pedestrian in a crosswalk, anything. What you guys don't know is that last year in the city of Sheboygan, not the county of Sheboygan, just last year, we had 8 personal injury bike versus car crashes. Okay, that means that someone claimed an injury or the officer saw an injury. Okay, we had 1 personal injury car versus pedestrian case. We had 0 fatalities. So 9 injury crashes in the city of Sheboygan last year when cars hit bicyclists or pedestrians. That's it. That's a big difference. What I can tell you from the stats that you guys compiled from the Department of Transportation, these probably came from a website called Community Maps. It's a public source. All this data comes from crash reports that police officers write. Okay, so the data is only as good as what the officers mark on there. But this particular non-motorist graph tells me that half of the people that were hit, whether they were bicyclists or pedestrians, that were hit or involved in a crash, did nothing to cause the crash. The other half did. Okay, that's what this graph says. So what do we do with the money? We stop when we have areas where there's a lot of pedestrians and a lot of cars. We are mandated by the state to make a traffic stop on a vehicle every 45 minutes. Okay, so my officers report all the traffic stops that they do. We also have an ability or an obligation pursuant to the grant to educate people when we stop them for the violations that they do. So If we stop Jeff for texting and driving, we need to talk to Jeff about how his driving might impact the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists, as well as other motorists on the road. We also have an obligation when we find people improperly using crosswalks or crossing mid-block, pedestrians and bicyclists, that we do the proper stop and education on them to make sure that they are engaging in safe behaviors as well. Just the other day, we had a crash with a city vehicle and a bicyclist. It was at dusk. The bicyclist didn't have a headlight. The driver of the city vehicle didn't see the bicyclist. So there are contributing factors. So what we want to do is reduce these numbers to zero. And that is a holistic approach where we have to take enforcement against cars, and we have to do education for the non-motorized transportation. And I can tell you that we probably didn't write a single bicycle or pedestrian violation ticket last year. So all of our enforcement happens at those public gatherings, the food trucks, the farmers market, the concert series, the P1 races. And when we find a pedestrian that's also violating something, we'll stop and talk to them and make sure that they're crossing the street the right way, so they don't unintentionally endanger themselves. That's how we use the grant. If you guys choose to make the edits, and that's totally up to you, if you edit it in such a way, I might have to reapply for the grant. But I can tell you that the vast majority of the stops that we make are on vehicles that are engaging in some type of behavior that could potentially endanger a non-motorist.
Roger.
So which edits would cause a change of the grant?
I would have to change the grant if we edited the resolution to make it indicate that we are only stopping vehicles. Okay.
No, so that was not our intent, just to.
Okay.
If I may interject as well,
Yes.
though, like it does seem to be written in a way that only sounds like it says engaging in high visibility enforcement of bicycle and pedestrian violations. I don't think it did include motorist violations in their initial resolution.
Yeah, so the original, thank you, Drew, for that.
Yeah.
That was what was a little strong, is that it indicated almost that only pedestrian.
Right.
So pedestrian, the original version is pedestrian street crossing is the most common cause of contributing factor in such crashes. So that was a little bit too strong in
Yeah.
one direction.
Yeah.
I think we're just concerned that was going to be
Yeah.
like that. I mean, the way you described it seems
Right,
pretty
it's
reasonable.
reasonable.
We're just nervous that like, hey, you're releasing this and now you're going to bump up all this enforcement on bicycle pedestrian.
Yeah, no, so yeah, I can tell you that, that the enforcement on the pedestrians comes at those festivals, and that just is I'm stopping and talking to them saying, hey,
Which is
So if
fine.
we edit that to make it more even-handed, I don't think you'd have to redo
no.
the application.
I don't think so. I just
I'll
Any
take a
edits?
motion to edit the wordage.
So I can propose an
Sure.
amendment. You tell us if you
Okay.
think that that is inappropriate. The second possibility is that we remove the whole part and we leave only the first part of the first whereas. So my version would be based on Drew and Brian's suggestion that going from the second sentence of the first whereas, this amount to a rate of 1 pedestrian killed or injured in Wisconsin every 7 hours. Sheboygan County DOT data from 2021 to 2023 suggests a strong correlation between motorist violations and such crashes. So that would be the change. If that you think it is too strong, then we could, so much that you would need to change the grant, we could, if you agree, we could do this amount to a rate of 1 pedestrian killed or injured in Wisconsin every 7 hours, stop, period, and then the second whereas. So eliminating that conclusion there about who causes the most violations. And I leave it to you just because, as you said, we don't want that grant to be changed, obviously. And it looks that we are on the same
No,
page as far as
yeah.
enforcement
I
goes.
would say for us, the most important is like that second part where it just says it looked like it was engaging in high visibility
Sure.
enforcement with bicycle and pedestrian. You know, if that would include traffic, that would be, I think that's what we were.
Sure.
concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that proposed amendment would
No.
have us change it, have to reapply for the grant.
The chair is
Okay.
going to hear a motion.
All right.
So just to be certain, just to make sure we're doing the right process, we'll have to motion to approve it and then we'll
Yep.
motion to amend.
Yep.
Okay, you're quite correct. Roger,
I make a motion to approve.
Second,
there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Well, and now we'll have to motion to amend.
Now we have to have a motion.
I make
Roger,
a motion to amend.
second,
All right, and now you would state the language that you
Very
mentioned.
good. So the second part of the first whereas would go, and I can provide this language to you afterwards. Is that okay?
Yes, and that's totally fine. And it's also, we're recording. so we'll
Correct,
be able to-
correct. So that second part of the first whereas would be Sheboygan County DOT data from 2021 to 2023 suggest a strong correlation between motorist violations and such crashes, comma. And the second whereas would have the last sentence changed from what it is right now to high visibility enforcement, traffic violation involving involving endangering vulnerable road users. So again, to clarify, it would go from to provide additional patrols engaging in high visibility enforcement of traffic violations endangering vulnerable road users.
okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Aye. Chair goes aye. It's passed. Okay, so we go on to resolution number 7. That's resolution number 162-24-25, a resolution approving the 2025 City of Sheboygan Emergency Management and Response Plan.
Thank you, Chair. So I brought with me Assistant Chief Salzman, who was instrumental in putting this packet together. I know it was lengthy. It was sent out to all the alders. I will let Jeff explain about it. And the hopes is if you don't have any questions or concerns that we move it to the council and get it approved. So with that, Jeff?
Yeah, just let me know if you want more detail on anything I talk about, but basically, what the plan does is spell out how we would deal with an emergency. It basically provides the framework. It describes how an emergency would be declared and it goes through that. Everything follows state code. So it's basically copied into the document itself. It also defines what training city staff would be doing, to handle that type of emergency. It also creates what's called emergency preparedness group, basically department heads and then we move forward and how do we manage an incident or a large scale incident in the city. There is 2 parts to the document itself. There's the emergency management plan. Then there's a second section with emergency support functions. What those emergency support functions basically are more detailed in who is developing the plans for specific areas such as evacuation. That part we want to keep as a working document so we can edit that in the future without having to come back to council. Basically, it's who's responsible for doing what, during an emergency and for the planning. So that's it in a nutshell.
And these are, the intent is this, is so we can use it locally in the city, right? If there was a disaster, flood, something. And if that disaster became larger, it would marry into the county's emergency management plan. And if that disaster became larger, it could also marry into the state and then the feds. So it's a standard document. I mean, each municipality is a little different. However, it should just flow if that disaster was larger.
Any other further discussion on that? Brother?
Is this, when was last time that we have changed this, updated this?
So that is an excellent question. It was being worked on prior to my arrival 6 years ago, and I really don't know the time frame when it was approved in 14 maybe.
I think it was before that because Captain Cobb had an old copy from sometime back. I think Listowski was the chief, may have been one the
Oh,
last time. it
way,
was
way
created.
before my time, yeah.
Yeah, so it was used and
I
then
wasn't even born yet.
faded away.
So should
I-
we
I was
update
wrong.
this more often? Shouldn't we? Or
Yes.
no, it's a question, it's a,
Well-
it's sincere question. It's not
Yes.
a-
So what's going to happen as we work in that emergency preparedness group is going to start digging into planning, what happens for an incident. So I think as that becomes a working document, I would see almost like an annual tweak, come through as an adjustment or a change to the document, and just a shorter, more brief adoption by the council.
Yeah, we've never really had an EOC, the plan in play, although it existed. We didn't have the training in city staff. So Jeff has come up with a timeline. We are implementing it. Actually, if you approve and the council approves, we'll be training this year with our staff. And then every year we'll review the plan and we'll do tabletop exercises as a department head, as a city, even getting the EOC up and running. So yeah, it's stuff that we've been trying.
And may I? Yeah, I was very pleased to see the training. Actually, before getting there, I was saying, I wonder if there is a training plan for this. So I was very pleased to see all the
Right.
detailed training. And I actually was looking if there was a training suggested for the other people, because some of them could be interesting for the other people as well, to be for the common council to be aware of some parts. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that you have to add it or amend it. I
Right,
just was thinking about that. So.
Yeah, we have two big trainings this spring. One is ICS 300. It's like how to manage a big incident. Then there's a second part to it is G 2300. It's in the plan, but it's intermediate EOC. So we're going to have a state instructor come in and teach us. There is a separate class for council. If you're interested, it's like a 2-hour or 4-hour class. If you're interested in that, we can look at putting that on and hosting it here so that you basically get a taste of incident command and emergency operations.
Yeah, we wanted to get our city staff and the department heads trained first before we did the political body, just because it's never been done. So that
Chair recognizes you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As I was looking through that, and I noticed where transit was involved. Now, there isn't anything because transit's funding comes from different sources where when they're in this, that's all applied for through them, or do we provide them additional training? Do we pay for that ourselves? How does that work?
go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
The training is basically paid by the federal government, the state.
Okay.
Yes, so both the classes that we'll be holding this spring is free of charge other than time to the city.
Okay.
So it's put on by the state or through federal grants. You weren't asking about their federal transportation dollars, were you? Or just the
I
training?
didn't know if all of a sudden they're going to say, hey, we'd like to be part of this, but here's where we can't be part of that. And they might already have something, guidelines within their organization, what they do during a disaster. How many buses do they get, what's their responsibility? So you don't have conflicting, you don't have one group of people telling transit to do one thing and one, you know what I mean? So we're all on the same page.
I can't, or Chief can't speak for Derek, but he does have guidelines. So an example would be when we're planning for the boat races.
Mhm.
If we need an emergency movement of people, we can put auxiliary buses in service, and there's a certain amount of routes that he has to keep going because of the federal funding.
Gotcha.
So he does have plans in place for all that.
Okay, well, Chair will entertain a motion on the resolution.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And chair votes aye, it passes.
Thank you for the support.
It's quite the long plan.
It is.
Okay, now, number 8 on the agenda. RO number 117-24-25 by the city clerk submitting liquor license application.
So if everyone can remember back to the C&G and Chiang Mai Garden thing, about how we had to go through the change of premise process, that is very similar to what we are doing here today. Like I've stated in the past, I am not recommending granting either way. All I'm going to say is that there is no legal prohibition on granting this license. So this is an application for Pena Inc., who runs Cafe Bella over by the Rotary. It's a release of the Class B liquor license from the Fountain Park Restaurant. As we know, the Fountain Park Restaurant will be closing down soon because their lease is running out and we're changing that building. If the committee recommends granting this license and the council approves, Pena Inc. will then submit a change of premise application in order to be able to use this Class B liquor license at Cafe Bella. A non-reserved Class B liquor license is issued to a person or a business, since a business is considered to be a person, at a particular premise. The premise here is the Fountain Park Restaurant. In this type of application, one business, Fountain Park, signs a release to another business, not a transfer. This is a release form to another business on the condition that the license release is accepted by the city. If the city does not accept the release, it is void and the license goes back to the original person or the original business. Okay. Since the lease, if the committee does not grant this license or approve recommended to grant this license, the license will not be released by the owners of the Fountain Park Restaurant. Since the lease at the Fountain Park Restaurant will run out at the end of this month, the owners of the Fountain Park Restaurant will no longer have access to their premise and thus cannot use the license since it's given to a business at a premise. The license would then eventually go back to the city in that case. So this is sort of the same situation that happened with C&G, where one business is releasing to another business. Normally it would be at the same establishment. Here, Cafe Bella is on the other side of the city. So they're trying to then move this license from place A to place B. If that's something that the council, or excuse me, the committee would like, they are more than welcome to. There is no legal prohibitions on granting this license. As a reminder, we talked about this the last time, there are guidelines to be used for granting or denying a liquor license that you may use in your decision. So again, this is up to you.
Is there any history of, anything or reason to not accept or make this transfer? Is there any, anything at all?
The only thing that I can think of is something that members of this committee brought up the last time. It sort of feels like maybe they're skipping the process of having to go through the presentations that other businesses may have to go through when something gets, released back.
Thank you, Chairman. Since this is I guess the reason I went along with the last time was because the proximity or where they were located. Okay, so now you have a business that's on the other side of town that wants to give his liquor license to another guy on another side of town. Okay, we do this once. How many other times are we, is the same item going to come to the council? And quite honestly, if Fountain Park is not going to be in business anymore and that license comes back to the city, Cafe Bella has just as much of an opportunity to come and apply for that license than anybody else. But to ignore the people that are in line waiting for a license, to let them transfer this license to another operation, that's not the way it works. And I wish there was more people here from the committee. Go ahead.
So Cafe Bella is a wonderful, well-established business. So I would not have any problem in approving a license for Cafe Bella. But I agree that there is not, I don't think we want to create this and do this again. Especially because there are people that are looking for this license, have been looking for this or waiting for this possibility before. So I would, and again, with all the respect for Cafe Bella, and I wouldn't have any doubt about there to be in compliance with whatever is related with this license. It's just that I would prefer that they follow the procedure as usual. So in other words, I would prefer that we release this, that license goes back to the city, and that I'm in agreement with other person, Heidemann, on that.
So if I may, when I explained this to you, I said the license would eventually go back to the city. When something is not granted, when a release is not granted, the license goes back to the person who owns it. I believe, according to Wisconsin liquor law, that they have 6 months at that premise, or that exact same business can use it either at that premise, I think, or I don't even know if they can use it in another place. So assuming that Fountain Park, the people that own Fountain Park won't be able to use the license at that place anymore, eventually I believe it would come back. If not, I spoke with, one moment, I'm gonna say one more thing if you'll allow it. Sorry, I gotta find this email. So if they don't voluntarily surrender it and they no longer have the premise, I believe they would have to go through the hearing process to like revoke it or take it back if we wanted to get it back faster. So that would be the process where we would call them in and ask, what are you going to do with the license, or if the committee would want it back in that way.
Okay, Joe?
Thank you, Chuck. Now, say, and again, we're going along with transferring it the way that this is going to be set up. But say all of a sudden, Fountain Park becomes business partners with Cafe Bella. Does that license from the Fountain Park go with the Fountain Park owner to Cafe Bella? I mean, is there another way that they can try to get around it?
There probably is. I don't want to
Speculate.
Well, I don't want to tell them how to do it. And I like Cafe Bella too. So it's,
Yeah.
I don't want to give them any ideas. I don't represent them. So
Right.
I represent the city. I don't want to give them any legal loopholes or any ideas on how they may do that.
and neither did I.
Yeah, yeah.
But I was just kind of thinking,
I think it's
so what's coming up next?
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. Well then,
So if we want to release, we want we don't want the transfer to happen. So we don't know what's happening afterwards. We don't want to be concerned with that at the moment. So what is the type of motion that we need right now?
So this is an RO to grant a license. Bar none. So if you do not want to grant the license, you would recommend denying granting a license.
I make a motion to deny the license.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, chair votes aye. That passes. Okay. And the next meeting will be on March 12th, 2025. And I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye, we're adjourned.
Yeah.
Look at it.